Men who are abused go on to usually abuse women, which is why I hold women accountable too. So for those of you who don't know, this is the dude from Terminator 2 who met this woman when he was 13 years old filming Terminator 2. She was 29. They started dating. So before I get into this, I am not only am I a survivor of domestic violence and childhood SA, I also worked in the film industry on set. I've been in the entertainment world, I don't know, since 2006. Even before that, I used to teach famous people's kids in the outdoors all over California doing outdoor jobs. So I got like an uncomfortably intimate look at how messed up children and families in Hollywood are, because there are so many predators there. Now, it's not just Hollywood. You literally could insert church or, whatever. It's everywhere. But I focus on Hollywood because it is such a money-making machine and it has an enormous amount of power. And because we know these faces, and so they are a good example of what happens when you let predators run wild with no recourse. I also care about this because I know several men who were groomed by older women when they were teenagers, and those men still do not admit to themselves that they were raped because under patriarchy, they're not allowed to. So I want to change that. So men who think I hate men, fork you. I care more about men than a lot of y'all do. So I'm a Gen Xer, and I'm the same age as this kid. And I say kid because he was a child when he broke into like crazy fame because he had no acting background. He was not famous. He didn't know this world. And then a casting agent or whatever, casting director, saw him, was like, I want that dude. He auditioned, he got it. He beat out like 100 people. He's naturally talented. He's also from a broken home, which seems to be a very common denominator especially among kids in Hollywood who end up getting abused by the system and even dying because of the system. A lot of them do not have parents who are looking out for them. A lot of them have their very parents are the ones abusing them. So this kid was super vulnerable to being groomed. People also compared him to Leo all the time. There's even speculation that stuff happened to Leo, which I wouldn't be surprised, because anytime you have a man acting super problematic, it's usually because something's happened to him and he hasn't gotten help. And if you want an example of that, click my mutuals comment here. I love her comment. She leaves a great comment. And go back to the video before of the dude in Montreal that went viral who left that 18-year-old girl there. He admitted in the video that I link here, of dating a 19-year-old woman when he was like 14. And he laughed about it, his virginity story, not even realizing he'd been raped. So the reason why I talk about this is I care a lot about everyone being safe. Because when men are abused as boys, they have patriarchy behind them. So then they grow up, they usually don't get help. They usually hide in like alcohol, drugs, or like extreme sports or something, their jobs, and then that trauma catches up to them. And they end up unaliving women and their children. And if they don't do that, they just slowly chip away at them and destroy them. And they destroy themselves. So everybody loses. And if we don't acknowledge this happens to boys too, we're not ever gonna fix this. Because I firmly believe the person who abused me when I was 4 had the same thing done to him. It's not to excuse it, but just to understand it. So much like this guy, I resorted to alcohol, wrongs, eating disorders. Apparently he had an eating disorder too. I did not resort to meth and heroin. And I mean, this guy was out to destroy himself. I mean, he almost died of an overdose. He's lost most of his teeth. He now has new teeth, but he's trying to make a comeback, but who knows what's going to happen. Now, mind you, there are like Britney, Lindsay Lohan, like so many of the stars that we're talking about now were in like this generation. But Hollywood's been doing this long before them, by the way, and it's still doing this. But just for reference, he dated Paris Hilton at one point, but he's been in trouble with the law a lot. Shocker, domestic violence being one of those. So this man who was abused by a system and a bunch of enablers and predators in Hollywood then went on to put his own child in danger as well as other women. But I want to focus on the woman who I believe is behind most of this. Now, we know that there's a whole context, right? He had no guardian, right? His aunt and his uncle and his mom and his like entertainment lawyer were all in a fight over who controls his money, who is his guardian. He also was not protected by the very people who were supposed to be looking out for him on set because he was a child and he was just left to fend for himself. And then in addition to that, there's a whole system that just let it happen. I'm going to go into that in a little bit. But a whole set of people knowing this teenager is dating a woman who's in her 30s and just were like, I don't know, he seems to be doing great. There's also some hope in this story about some high school students who exposed her, and hopefully I'll get to that in this video. It may be in a part 2. I like to have some hope in all this because there are people who are looking out and who do care and who take huge risks to expose people who are predators. I always try to focus on that because otherwise this stuff is just like, what? Where's the hope? Where's the will to live if everybody's a predator? There's a bunch of sources that wrote about this. I found this one to be really interesting. The scandal, affair, whatever you want to call it. This is essay, that's what they should call it, that Hollywood forgot about. All of us seem to have forgotten about. So I think this was an in-print edition of Entertainment Weekly. And this same story is found in several different sources. This is the most coherent one. So it seems like one of the only people, other than his aunt and uncle, though it's questionable what their motives were because some people think it was money. The only person who seemed to really be looking out for them was this director, Tony Bill, who was the director of one of his movies. This man wrote a letter to his agent saying, about out of 8 weeks of shooting, he found it astounding and dismaying that none of his guardians were really taking care of him. He even said, who is taking care of this kid? He's 15. He said, in his 30 years, I have never worked with a kid who was so clearly on a path of disaster. Not only because Edward had no parental supervision and no guardianship and no one really looking out for him, because they were literally fighting. And then he had a groomer on set who he was dating. So this Jackie chick was originally his stand-in, Edward's stand-in, in Terminator 2. Then she went and got an accredited certificate so she could be his private tutor. So when they were working on this movie in Utah, Tony Bill, the guy I just mentioned above, was super suspicious of this chick. Edward was 15. He found Jackie wrestling playfully with Edward and another child on the floor of her classroom. So one of the producers fired her immediately. But the uncle and the aunt who were supposed to be looking after Edward didn't really think there was a problem, so they kept her on as a private tutor. They eventually thought there is something wrong with this, the groomer girlfriend, and she was like, I control everything he does. I have power over him. Don't tell me what to do, man. And there were all these fights between the aunt and the groomer lady. The aunt's trying to say, no, Edward, you can't go visit Jackie. You have to bathe your dog. And then Edward punched a hole in the ceiling of his trailer. He was trying to be like a parental voice. You just worked 12 hours. Go to bed, dude. You can't go visit Jackie. You have to go to sleep. Get off your phone with Jackie. It's 3 a.m. No adult woman should be dating a teenager. But this is, do you know what I mean? It's not just oh yeah, she was his tutor and it's allegedly. Edward himself called this woman his girlfriend. They were pictured out together all the time. And what some people noted is that she was really short and she dressed down for her age. She was trying to look younger. So people would forget that she's a grown woman with a teenager. I mean, look at this. I don't know if you can see in this picture. Converse with this outfit, she dresses like a teenager. And I wear tennis shoes all the time. This is no diss on Converse. This is Hollywood. She's purposely not glamming it out for a reason because she's with a teenager. So once Edward got liberated from his family members who weren't really protecting him, but trying at least somewhat, he went to New York with Jackie to film another movie with this director, James Gray. And this is what makes me so mad. So Jackie was accepted on set. No one saw her as his tutor, but rather kind of like his manager. And, like I said, she was petite, she dressed younger. Between takes, he was taking drags and cigarettes and was holding hands with her like he was in high school, stroking her hair. And listen what the director says. I had my doubts at first, but I think she's good for him. She's a stabilizing force and she cares for the guy. After a while, who can quibble with that? And then she says this, I'm just, helping him. Not only is that the attitude of a lot of men in Hollywood, just la 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 la, whatever, don't care. They don't care about women being abused, and they don't even care about men being abused, or children, or teenagers. But this is the attitude too. They don't care as long as they're getting the job done. There was a lot of chaos on the other sets because he had all these guardians fighting each other over the estate, over, who can help make decisions for him. And now all those people are gone and it's just him and his little abuser girlfriend. and things are more calm. And as somebody who worked on set, these directors and men with power, like, just get the shot. Whatever it takes, get the shot. So like I said before, it was directors and an entire crew that embraced this woman, this 29-year-old woman who was the girlfriend of a 15-year-old, who enabled all of this. And, the director even preferred it this way because he got the job done. As somebody who saw men like this put so many people in danger on a regular basis just to get the shot, because their artistic vision is so important. Who cares who's being abused? Who cares if a camera assistant gets run over by a train, like what happened in Georgia? I owe y'all a video on that. Or who cares if the DP gets shot by Alec Baldwin? They're on a budget. They've only got so many days to shoot. We don't need a prop master and an armorer. We'll just combine the two. Oh God. As somebody who worked on set and who my life was put in danger many times, I hate these men in Hollywood. And it's not only men, but it's usually white men who think they're so important, do not care about the safety of anybody because it'll get in the way of their genius being realized. This man literally threw that 15-year-old boy to a wolf because she was a stabilizing force. God! So this woman went from being his private tutor to a social worker monitoring his welfare on the set of Brain Scan. And then, in the summer of 93, when Edward turned 16, Jackie came out and said they fell in love. And they openly began dating when he was 16. And he moved into her LA home. Oh, and I did not know this. I have to look into this. Meanwhile, she filed for divorce from her husband? What? I need to look that up. I need to verify that. But in case you're wondering, in 94, the uncle and the aunt filed a complaint with the police regarding the newly changed statutory rape laws, which is yet another reason why we need feminism, intersectional feminism, womanism, because it's not just to protect women. We care about everybody. Look, until 1994, you couldn't prosecute women, adult women, for with minors. 1994, y'all. They didn't care about teenage boys, right? Because under patriarchy and toxic masculinity, teenage boys, they want it. That's not abuse. They want it. They're lucky. So after this law went into effect, the aunt and uncle tried to go after this Jackie woman. But shocker, nothing happened to her because they interviewed Edward. And, someone who's being groomed and is dating his groomer, he's not going to see anything wrong with this. Survivors of schmexual violence from adults, when you're a child or even a teenager, sometimes even when you're an adult, you will make all kinds of excuses for the abuse of the person abusing you. But they just, took it at that. And meanwhile, he secured his emancipation from all his relatives. So he was all hers after that. So there's so much to this story, but I just want to show you an interview that I found with the way he talked about his girlfriend. And she was sitting right there during this interview. Like, this was a widely known, not even a secret. This is just an accepted couple. Which honestly doesn't surprise me because Steven Tyler and a bunch of other rock stars were dating teenagers too. Schmegs trafficking teenagers too. 15-year-olds. So this is nothing new. That's a whole video because so many men are doing this. But I'm making this point is that the system doesn't care when women do it either. And the reason I'm talking about it is it's important. But the reason why I resist talking about this sometimes is because men will use this one example of a man being abused to then throw it in our face and say, you don't care about men. You never talk about men. Even though it happens to women way more. I'm aware it happens to men and I absolutely talk about it happening to men too. All genders. I care about it. Everyone it happens to. But under patriarchy, it absolutely targets women and girls more. So in this one interview, first of all, I'm totally with Jackie. And then he goes on and on. You can pause to read. It's not that interesting. The temptations of Hollywood, blah. And when the reporter asked about their, questionable relationship, which it really isn't really questioned all that much. What people say about us doesn't matter. Either you love someone or you don't. Age has nothing to do with it at all. I live my life like I want to live it. Not for anyone else. Jackie and I are nobody else's business. I don't care what other people do or don't understand. Now, he talked like this in multiple interviews, y'all. I'm including this because as somebody who has justified my own abuse at the hands of someone else, to myself and to other people, I absolutely understand this. As heartbreaking it is to read, I get it. And especially in this environment. He tells us one story about him and her where they went out to eat at the mall. And then all these people were like attacking him basically. At first they were just, it was fine. But then they kind of started to mob him. And then a dude came out of the crowd and kissed him on the cheek. And his first reaction is to punch him. And then, Jackie's holding him back. The reason why I include this is because Edward did not feel safe. He didn't feel safe. Jackie's the only person that made him feel safe. And that's what these predators do. He didn't have family or adults really looking out for him. And so then she swoops in. Oh, I love you. I'll protect you. So then it's them against the world. It's no wonder he was in this relationship for so long. He rightfully so did not trust anyone in Hollywood. Here he talks about if anyone messed with Jackie, he'd beat the crap out of them. But not before she beat the crap out of them first. Oh, she's one tough cookie. She looks out for both of us. Oh, and look, we're just normal teenagers. We just stay at home and chill, watch TV together, hang out with friends. And then when the reporter said, so what kind of girls do you prefer? Because he's talking about you're like, all these girls must be throwing yourselves at you. He says, whatever Jackie is. I'm real romantic. That's one thing for sure. When the reporter asked, hard body or natural, whatever Jackie had. A perfect date, doing anything with Jackie. And then this reporter was like, do you guys feel like tying the knot soon? You gonna get married? Nobody's business, Edward said, but this is for life. Definitely. He talks about how he wanted to, have a Harley Davidson, but Jackie would never allow it. She'd kill me. And also because of the money. Here's the thing about stars. They have to pay so many people. And in addition to that, he's got a groomer woman who is seemingly in charge of his money too. Talking about their happy little home. Oh, Jackie picks the furniture for the house. He says, I have no taste, but I have one special room where I get to, do whatever I want. Like, oh God, you guys. And then the reporter was like, anyone who says that these two aren't a matching set is not paying attention. And that's why I included that whole stupid interview. I want you to see how everyone normalizes this. We still normalize this. It's a little less normal now, but it's still perfectly normal for, a 60-year-old man to be dating a 20-year-old. Nothing wrong with that. Teenagers is like a little bit less okay, but come on. So where is this lady now? And this is what I have the biggest issue with. She's thriving. She painted herself as the victim. And this really gets to me. As a survivor of domestic violence, this woman had the gall to groom and abuse that boy. And then when she was done with him, accused him of domestic violence. The New York Post has the most ridiculous headlines, I swear to God. Cradle robbing girlfriend, oh my God. Hooked up with. So she claimed that Edward attacked her in their Sherman Oaks house, throwing stuff at her, screaming at her, swinging his fist, pinned her to the bed, blah, 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 won't go into more. He said other violence had happened before, claimed to be afraid to tell the police. I'm not doubting that he could have been violent, but in this case, I think she's lying. And if he was violent, it was reactive abuse. So why was she doing this? She wanted to be paid 15% of everything he made in the last 3 years and money for severe emotional distress for putting up with him for all those years. The boy she groomed. She's also a thriving author of books about veganism. She's changed her name to Jackie Day. Same woman though. She was also a teacher in a high school in her 40s of Schmeg's education. And this is the hope part. These two teenagers at this school wanted to do a story about her. She wanted to get soda banned. And she actually got it banned at schools. And this is in the LA Times, by the way. So she was on this crusade to end junk food in California. So they started digging up on her. And that's when they found out about her and Ed. They went to the courthouse, found a suit made by her for her quasi-spousal relationship. They also found out that she had been guilty of domestic violence. Pause to read. They took all of this to their principal because they didn't want someone who dates teenagers teaching at their school. Principal did nothing. Claimed they were trying to embarrass her, ruin her career, even got her union involved. Threatened like libel. They wouldn't print it in the school newspaper, so they took it to the LA Times because they thought that's the right thing to do. Parents deserve to know. But Jackie Day is a successful author now, changed her name, but her victim, not doing so well, and abused 2 different women. And the cycle continues.